What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Naveen. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Naveen. And boy, do we have a special repeat guest. Naveen Jain is in the house. What's up, Naveen?
Well, first of all, brother, so good to be here again and looking forward to the episode.
Oh, man. So at the end of the last show, you guys might have listened to the last show between Naveen and myself. He's like, man, I want to come on and talk about business and parenting and life and do it in a much more from a counterintuitive perspective. And obviously, you can't be a moonshotter unless you approach things from a different angle. And so I was like, heck yeah, let's do that, Naveen. And him and his team were gracious enough to schedule another time to come on the show. So, man, just super pumped to have you back here. Really grateful to spend more time with you, Naveen. How have you been, man? What's life? What's going on in life for you?
Well, first of all, life has been just absolutely amazing. And that's really the way that to live life is that you wake up every day with joy and happiness. And the only way you can do that is to feel that you're doing things that are actually improving people's life. So that when you find something in your life that is purposeful enough, then you actually feel you're doing God's work and you feel joy every day you wake up in the morning.
I love that, man. My friend and I have a good friend, former guest on coach John Domsky. We were talking this morning, and he's like, if life feels like a slog, it means you're not approaching it from the position of purpose. And
Yes.
so, like, really what you just touched on. So you guys, Naveen, for those of you guys that have been living under a rock, Naveen is just a rock star, moonshotter, serial entrepreneur, visionary, just doing so many cool things. He's involved with Singularity University, the X Prize. And right now, he's the CEO of Viome Life Sciences. So he's doing some really amazing work there. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And author of the award-winning book, Moonshots, Creating a World of Abundance. So, man, one thing I love about you, Naveen, is you don't seem to be afraid to just go for it, man, just to take these big chances. And it seems to have rubbed off. You got some amazing kids. They're doing amazing moonshots themselves. But, I'm really excited today to talk to you about your approach to life, because I think that we got to talk a lot about business last time around. This is a little bit more about the life side. If you wouldn't mind, though, for the audience, give them just kind of and I'm going to tell the audience, if you want to give it a little bit of the deeper background, go listen to the last episode. You should listen to the last episode anyways if you haven't, because it's incredible. And Naveen whenever someone's a repeat guest, they're a badass. But check out the last episode if you want the deeper story. But Naveen, if you wouldn't mind, give us some of your background. How'd you get to where you got to? And then I'd love to dive into your counterintuitive perspectives about life, parenting, and all the above.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to talk a lot about myself because I really want this episode to be about the things that I have learned and how everyone who's listening to it, who is kind enough to give their most valuable thing they have in their life, which is their time, to you and I. And I want to make sure we make it absolutely most useful thing we can do for them. So let's just start with the second here. Obviously I grew up in India. We were very poor. We didn't have food to eat. And life has been just absolutely amazing. God has been so kind to us. And I really believe when you feel so much kindness from the universe, and call that God, you feel that you have an obligation to do things that actually contribute back to humanity. You contribute back to the universe. So you're, as a whole, you actually have a ledger that, you received this much and now you're going to give back this much. So at least when someday you die, at least you've died debt free. So I'm dedicating my life, at least the next 10, 15 years of my life, to focusing on helping people live healthier and longer. And in fact, I wrote a book recently called The Youth Formula, which is really about, how to completely rethink about your genetics and how to actually unlock the secret to longevity, right? And there's some of the things that we really talk about there is that how do you get the right nutrition in your body? How do you reduce the stress? How do you get the just the right amount of exercise, get a good sleep, and find a life of purpose? And these are really the 5 things, the 5 elements you have to do to stay healthier longer. And that is really what we're doing at Viome today. We have analyzed over 1 million microbiome now. And based on that, what we have learned is absolutely counterintuitive. The things, the food that we used to think are healthy, it turns out actually they're not necessarily healthy for everyone. So 50% of the people are harmed by eating spinach. Think about that for a second, right?
Wow.
45% of the people are harmed by eating broccoli. Right. Things people think are avocado. 40% of the people are harmed by avocado because it has a high uric acid that turns into a gout if you already have high uric acid. And what really surprised me was 52% of the people actually benefit from eating red meat. And I really thought that was just an absolute mind-boggling because I thought red meat is just bad for everyone. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. But the fact is, it's good for 52% of the people. It changed my mind that at least those people are not committing a crime. They're at least eating healthy. I may not eat it myself, but you know what? That's okay. It may not be good for me, but it's good for them. And that's really the theme is what we did with Viome was to personalize things for everyone. You do a simple test, at home test, Darius, as you probably have done it. You give us a spit of your saliva, you give us a touch of your stool, and a few drops of your fingerprint blood, and we analyze everything for you, from your biological age to your heart health, to your gut health, to your oral health, your cognitive health, your immune health. And then we tell you exactly what foods to eat and why, what foods not to eat and why. And then whatever nutrition your body is lacking, we custom make the supplements for each individual on demand every month. We make the personalized probiotics for you. We make the personalized oral lozenges for you. We even make the personalized toothpaste for you and gel so that you can adjust your oral microbiome. But now let's focus on more about how do you come up with these ideas that are so counterintuitive, not just in business, but I'm going to focus more on life, right? And so let me step back for a second, just tell you that I'm obviously 65 years old. So I have 3 children who are no longer young. They're 3 adult children. My oldest is 33, and he runs a company called Built Reward. And anyone who wants to Google, they can Google Ankur, Ankur, Ankur Jain. He runs a company called Built, Vilt. And the amazing thing is he took on a challenge that everyone thought was impossible. How to actually reward everyone who is paying a rent. How do you reward something that people already do, but they never got any benefit out of it? He created a reward system that allows every single person who is paying a rent to actually benefit from paying the rent, right? That company today, in the last 2.5 years, is already processing $40 billion worth of payments. That company is already worth multi-unicorn. And Ankur ended up in the Forbes list on his own at the age of 33. Right. Our daughter, so he went to Wharton, by the way. Our daughter is 30. She went to Stanford STEM fellow, Stanford Mayfield fellow, and she runs a women's health company called Evvy, EVVY. So everyone who's listening to it, if you're a woman, go sign up for Evvy. It's a women's health company, does a vaginal microbiome. It actually tells you everything you need to know about women's health. And she's trying to actually fill the gender gap. It turns out, until about a couple of decades ago, women weren't even allowed to be in the clinical research. So every drug that women take were never tested on women. They don't work on women. Women are diagnosed 7 years later for the same disease that men are diagnosed with. Right. So she's changing completely by understanding women's body to change the women's gender gap. That is now become the world's premier women's health company called Evvy. So go look for your spouse, look for your mother, go look for your daughter, and make sure you sign up. Our youngest one is 27. He also went to Stanford, and he became the Schwarzman Scholar. And Steve Schwarzman selects 35 people around the world who are the best, and he actually sends them to China to understand exactly how the geopolitical things are going to work as the two superpowers, China and US. How are they going to work together? Right. And he, as a Schwarzman scholar, he's now doing a fintech company. So three amazingly smart children. Now, how did they turn out to be? Now, what's really interesting is, as you know, as I mentioned, that I grew up poor, and people say that people, you came from nothing and you have this inherent desire to go do something. And then how do you actually bring the same desire into the children who are growing up in an extremely affluent family? How do you get them to start thinking about they have to do something meaningful? Because it's really easy. They know they don't have to work a day for a living. And here they are working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, every single day, trying to solve an audacious problem that has never been solved before. Now, what was it that got them to start thinking like that? And now I'm going to actually give you those tips and the tricks about how to go do that. And Darius, do you have children?
Yeah, I have two boys.
Two boys. Now, I'm going to use you as a guinea pig, and I'm going to ask you questions about how would you deal with them. Then I'm going to tell you, are you doing the right or the wrong? So first thing is, anytime every parent, when they, even semi-successful, first thing they want to do is to say, if the children are young, they want to spend time with their young children. So if you had all the money in the world, wouldn't you want to spend your basically semi-retire and spend time with your children?
What I want to?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, tell me why.
I mean, I would probably spend a little bit more time than I am right now starting a company.
Yeah.
But I want them to see someone that's being purposeful, and I want them to witness what that looks like. And they have. My kids have watched me do that.
Right answer, Darius. So +1 for you. That is not how 90% of the people think. 90% of the people think, I got success, I'm going to go now spend time with my children. And exactly what you say happens. When children see you sitting at home when they go to school, and they see the dad sitting on the sofa watching CNBC, they come back from school, and the dad says, work hard. Hard work is what it takes. Go to your room, finish your homework. And they're thinking, dad is sitting on the sofa watching CNBC. Dad made some money, and dad is just enjoying life. I want to grow up just like my dad, sit on the sofa and watch CNBC. Now, this dad did exactly what you described. My first company was wildly successful. And at that point, I was 40 years old. My kids were all under 10 years old. And having done an unbelievably great success with a company called InfoSpace, went on to become a $40 billion company. Right? I started the second company, the third company. And then the dad says, now we're going to go build a company to go to the moon. And the kids are young. Dad, you're crazy. No private company has ever done that. It's a crazy idea. How can you possibly think you can do that? And they see the dad take on that idea and actually go out and make it happen. We became the first company to get permission to leave Earth orbit. We got the law changed by President Obama that said anything we bring back from the moon, we get to own it. We became one of the 6 companies to get a $2.6 billion NASA contract. Wow. And then I saw my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I changed track and I said, look, this company, I'm going to let someone else run it. I'm going to focus on healthcare. And my goal was to actually understand what caused my dad to be sick. Why was it that he had diabetes and heart disease? And now we didn't even know that he had a cancer, let alone a stage 4 cancer. And I wanted to solve the problem of understanding what causes people to be sick. And can we diagnose the early stage cancer? And can we prevent the diseases from happening? Can we actually stop the progression of it? And can we reverse the diseases from ever happening? Now, guess what? Now, dad is almost 60 years old. Dad, you're crazy. You're 60 years old. Go retire. This is not a problem you can ever solve. You're not even a doctor. You're not a scientist. How are you going to solve a healthcare problem? What do I tell them? The fact I know so little about it makes me the most dangerous person this industry has ever seen. because I'm going to challenge everything that the experts have taken it for granted. And and I think in the last episode we talked about was asking the right questions. By asking the right questions, you are able to look at the problem differently and you're able to solve that problem, right? So guess what? So you got the plus one. The children don't do what you tell them to do. Children do what they see you do. Right? So children do what they see you do. They don't do what you tell them to do. So it is, you need to become the role model for your children. If you want them to be successful and be entrepreneurial, they need to see you do that. You can't be working as a mid-level manager in a company and want your kid to be a successful entrepreneur. Because guess what? When you come back from work and you tell kids, God, my boss sucks, I hate my job, and then you go back to work the next day, kids realize work sucks. You complain at home, but you go back to work every day. You don't take any risk. You can't expect them to go out and start a company, because if you couldn't do it, why would they do it?
Right.
Right. Second thing. Now, if your son came to you and said, Dad, I really found my passion. I want to pursue my passion. What would you do?
I would tell them that they should do it, and I would help them. I would help them explore the passion. I might ask them to, what they wanted to do about it. I think I would help nurture the passion. I would help create an environment where they felt like they could go and look at it and explore it.
Okay. So that's a wrong thing to do. So this is a minus one. Let me tell you why. When the kids are young, they have not been exposed to enough things yet. And they only are deciding based on the things they have seen. When they are young, they've seen what you do, they have seen what they heard in the class, but they don't really know much. And they don't have a right to tell you what they don't like and what they can't do until they actually, unless you as a parent have exposed them to enough things, right? So the thing is, your job as a parent, our job as a parent, is to create exposure for them for as many things as possible. So then they get to decide what is it that they really want to do with their life. And this was very interesting. When my daughter was 16-year-old, she came to me one day and she said, Dad, I know you love science and technology. I want nothing to do with science and tech. I have found my passion and I want to pursue my passion. Dad says, sweetie, you're too young to have a passion. You need to let Dad do his job. What is Dad's job? Dad's job is very easy. I need to expose you to enough things in life so you can decide what is it that you want to do. What would you like me to do then? Well, I like you to go to Singularity University. I want you to learn about nanotechnology. I want you to learn about neuroscience. I want you to learn about AI. I want you to learn about genetics. I want you to learn about all these things. And you know what she did? She rolled her eyes and she said, Dad, you don't even hear a word I say. Did I not tell you that I have no interest in science and tech? And Dad says, sweetie, here is my promise to you. If you go there to Singularity University for 4 weeks, wanting to learn and wanting to like, and when you come back, I have done my job of exposing you to everything. You get to decide what you want to do, and I'll absolutely support you. She goes there, comes back after 4 weeks, says, Dad, now I made up my mind. And I said, sure, sweetie, what do you want to do? She said, Dad, I've decided I'm going to either be a neuroscientist or a genetist, because I realize that science and technology is simply the tools in my tool chest for me to do the things I want to do. But I realize without my having those tools, I can never be successful in the mission that I wanted to do. So, I always wanted to help women. And the only way I can help women is by understanding what their issues are. Now, that girl, if I had not done that, would have never found her true passion. She went to Stanford, became a Stanford Stamp Fellow, Mayfield Fellow. First company was to use AI to remove gender bias. And now, as I told you, she's running Avi to actually use AI to fill the gender gap. So think about it. That simple conversation changed her life and probably is going to change millions, if not billions of people's lives, because we cared enough to expose her to different things.
Can I ask a question on that? Because I'll use my oldest son as an example, and I actually agree with you that you got to. I have a rule with my kids. I say you can't say you don't like something until you've done it, right? You can't say I don't like that. I don't like that food. You can't say I don't like any activity until you've done it. Go do it, and then if you have an opinion about it, I'll listen to you, right? So, but my oldest son is a very artistic kid. Okay. And so I put him in a bunch of sports when he was a kid. I could just tell it wasn't his thing. So I started exposing him to a lot of art and a lot of, to your point, like computer science and stuff like that. And I did find that he had a passion for that stuff. So once I recognized that, I've leaned into the stuff that I know that he tends to have a strength for or have exhibit an interest in. But even what you just said right now, I haven't said, oh, okay, well, I don't know how he feels about that much about technology or science or anything like that. I think he's somewhat interested in it. How do you kind of give him enough exposure to enough different areas? Like for instance, I don't know if you had exposed your kids to arts or to like acting or.
Absolutely. And particularly, it's not just about art. Art is a medium. Art is a output. It's not an input. Right? Now, you need to be able to expose him to say, hey, how do you use AI to create the world's best art? Can we use something instead of in using Sora, using all of these AI tools? What can you do with them? Right? How can you find art in nature? And allowing him to start to think about it, that everything has this beauty, allowing them to see the nanotechnology, allowing them to see what if they can actually understand how nature creates all this beautiful art that you see, right? Because the minute you expose, their mind starts to expand. Right? And this expansion of mind allows them to be good at whatever they end up doing. So we didn't say, hey, Ankur, we're going to raise you so you can start build, or we are going to raise you so you can start this. This is an outcome of the curiosity we set up. And that brings me to the third point, which is, as parents, it's not our job to take them to the water and make them drink. Our job is to make them thirsty. Because once you make someone thirsty, they will find their own water and they will drink. So here is my next question to you, Darius. If your son came to you and said, Dad, look outside. What a beautiful blue sky. What would you say to him?
I probably would take a look at it and give him my opinion. I would say,
Good.
I would give him my opinion as well.
Yeah, so that's -1. And here is the one, and here is why. Every opportunity you get, you are supposed to make them curious. Remember, the only way to create thirst is to make someone intellectually curious. So the right answer would be to say, son, the thing that you're seeing is sky. It doesn't really exist. You know that, right? It is simply the light hitting the Earth atmosphere and the blue light being scattered. And what you see as a barrier called sky doesn't really exist. It's just a light. And secondly, since you mentioned the beautiful blue color, the color blue doesn't really exist, right? Because simply the photons, there is no color that exists outside. It's the photons that hit our retina. Our mind makes up these colors. And what you're seeing is simply our perception, and we have given that. The rats probably don't see the same color. The bats may not see the same color. The dogs may not see the same color. So it is simply a perception that we have created, but there is no color blue and there is no sky. And it's not about teaching them science. It is allowing them to actually question that even the thing that they're absolutely certain about, that they can see with their naked eye, what if they are wrong? What if that could be something different? And this is how you create intellectual curiosity. They can never take anything for granted. They say, oh, what if that's actually wrong? And that, what if it is wrong? What if it could be something different, is what allows them to look at the problem from a different perspective and solve that. Because if you keep agreeing with what everyone has said, you'll never be able to solve any problem that is in a different way.
I just had a realization that I would need to know all those things about about this guy, but it makes a good point that I need to be more curious, probably, so they can represent that in front of
It's
the kids.
and it's just an example, but my point is you can apply that to everything, right? So even if someone were to simply say, hey, that really is, I touched the laptop. Why? That's really cold. And you explain them that, remember, you're feeling that when you touch something, you feel it is solid, but you know inherently that everything is made out of atoms. Atoms are made of, you know, electrons and protons and nucleus. What are they made of? They made of quarks. What are they made of? Boson. What are they made of? Simple energy. They're simply the floating energy, and our perception, our haptic sensors fools us into thinking something is solid, even though we all know it is just simply the energy interacting with energy. Our mind fools us into thinking I'm touching something solid, even though we all know it is not solid. Right?
I love that. So it's really it's funny because I think a lot of people, like what you're talking about, is really challenging the way people think, right?
Exactly.
And so what I've kind of, I went to college and I studied accounting and economics.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this. I'd love your perspective on this, actually. And I said, if I had to press the rewind button and I had to go back to college today,
Yeah.
I would never have studied economics and accounting. And they said, well, why? And I said, I might have taken a class on one of them, but I wouldn't have, that would not have been my major. I said, what I would have made, I would have majored in philosophy, because philosophy teaches you how to think. And that is something that I have to use every single day, not some static piece of information that I learned that is maybe applicable, maybe not in the future, but the actual process of thinking. I've fallen in love with Stoicism. So I'm reading right now. I'm actually just finishing Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
Yeah.
Right? I read a chapter every day, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how you've approached this, because it seems to me like you have fallen in love with like science. Like this is like you look at like
no. I remember my background has nothing to do with anything I do. I have a background in industrial engineering and union management. Right. Right. And my first company was doing computers. I've never seen a computer in my life. Right?
That's right.
The point is, it is about constantly learning to learn and constantly challenging yourself to learn about things that you know nothing about. Right. And that is the thing is, I spend at least several hours a day where we am simply learning about new things. So if you look at my Audible audiobook thing, I read 10 books on quantum theory. I have nothing to do with quantum. I don't even know what, but I'm trying to learn what would you do with it? If it becomes real tomorrow, how would our world change? What can I do with this thing that will help me solve the problem that I want to solve? I go out and learn about every subject. I learn about why the cancer happens in the body. Why does the body age? And then I'm reading the biographies, whether it is for Einstein, whether it's Leonardo da Vinci, whether it is Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, because I want to see how these people think differently. Right? What was the thought process that goes through the people? So when I'm looking at Alexander the Great, I want to know what was the thought process that could have gone through his head to say, I want to do this. What can I learn from that? Right? So to me, I go out literally, not that I need motivation. I read about motivational books. What is it that causes people to think and say, I don't want to do it? I don't understand for the life of me about depression. Why would anyone ever be depressed? The world is so effing amazing. The world can be what you want it to be. You get to create the world for yourself. How can you possibly be depressed? But I want to learn what is it that goes through people's mind so I can help them. And that is really is, I'm a curious person. It doesn't matter what the subject is. I want to know about nuclear physics as much as the next guy. And it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I don't care what field they are in. I ask questions. I want to learn. I want to learn about a fusion reactor.
So I'm gonna throw this out there, and this might be controversial, but like if anyone Googles you right now and says Naveen Jain net worth, it'll say $8 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in rare air. And so someone who's listening to this might be like, oh, well, it's easy for him to, say those things like he has everything, right? I would love, and before you answer that though, I'd love to like go into a time machine and go back to before when you didn't have those resources. Cause I just think that's, money's energy, right? To your point. And that you have access to opportunities that you've earned through building great businesses. But before you had that, what was your mentality then? Was it the same? How did you approach life then?
It is the same. Think about it. I started my first company to build the services for a phone that did not exist. My first company, InfoSpace, built the services for smartphones that never existing. In year 2000, if you were to Google my name and type Washington Post Leslie Walker, in year 2000, I am quoted as saying, one day we're going to have a phone that we're going to be able to do our email. Our contacts is going to give us a real-time stock code. We'll be able to know, it will know where we are. And when we drive by the Starbucks, it's going to give you the Starbucks coupon. And we won't be using our credit card to pay. We'll be using our phones to pay. And that's year 2000, 7 years before the iPhones came out.
Right.
Think about that. Now, it's not that I somehow had a crystal ball. And this is the way, is because I'm constantly looking at where the world is to see where the world is going to be next. And I saw that there were Palm Pilots, then there were phones, and there were pagers. And what if I thought, what if the phone got merged into a Palm Pilot and the pager went into the Palm Pilot? Then suddenly we have a screen that you can do everything that you can do, but now it is connected. Because it is connected to the cell phone. Instead of a separate pager, now you can be able to notify on your Palm Pilot. That became your iMessage, right? But point was, it was all pretty obvious to me how these devices are going to connect. People thought the Palm Pilot was going to become a StarTech, the tiny screen phone, and I thought the phone could go on a Palm Pilot, which really what became iPhone, right? The point I'm trying to make is that it is about thinking differently, looking the things where the world is going to be, and how you can connect the dots. And that brings me to the about connecting dots, and I'm going to talk to you about redefining. So one is, when you are successful, how do you get kids to rethink what success is?
Right.
So one of the things was we redefined success for our children. We said, look, your success will never be measured by how much money you have in the bank. It will always be measured by how many lives you actually improved. Right. That means focus on improving people's life, and that is your success, not the amount of money. And then we say the second part, your self-worth is never going to be how much you own. Your self-worth will come from how much you created. And if you haven't created anything, you're still a parasite on society. So don't be a parasite. Right? That means it's not. There are a lot of people in the world who inherit the wealth. And they, in my world, they're parasite because they haven't created anything. They simply own a lot, but they haven't done anything, right? And that's the part of that, right? So part of it is really redefining what success means. And guess what? The children may say, whatever, dad, but it never, ever goes outside their mind.
Go
ahead.
I have a question. So with your kids, obviously they've seen the ups and downs of you being an entrepreneur. You start to line up. I mean, the fact that your son has built some, I mean, we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, that when he started at UPenn, he started Cairo Society, right? And they've done some cool things there. So do you think that there was like, if you were to guess, how much of this is nature and nurture for him to be able to do something like that? I mean, he had a good role model in yourself, but how much of that's just like wiring too?
That's a nurture. So everything is nurturing, because if it was nature, 90% of the parents who are super, super successful, 90% of their kids are total bums. Total bums. So if it was genes, it was genetic, or it was nature, then all those kids will be successful and entrepreneurial. The fact is, it's very rare that a successful family ever had children that actually go out to do anything else. They all become the trust fund kids, right?
And with your kids, like kind of going in that direction, and you're making a good point. And I know some families where the grandparents. This is
Yeah.
100, 80, 100 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
we're some of the most successful people probably in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see this constantly. The Rockefellers is probably one of the
Yeah.
exceptions, right? Where these kids, they don't do anything with their lives. They become socialites. A lot of them lose the money.
Yeah.
To your point, like that's nature, right?
Yes.
What do you think? Like, if your kids knew that they could have, I mean, anything, right? And Warren Buffett talks about this. Make sure your kids, he says, make sure your kids can do something, but not everything, right? And so, what was when you start thinking of your kids who grew up privileged? What was the messaging around, like, how? I mean, I'm assuming there was some messaging around wealth transfer and stuff like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
When you're talking about people who are so mega wealthy, and when they say they can't have everything, they say, well, I'm going to, if you're worth 100 billion or 200 billion, right? And people say, I'm going to give away 95% of my wealth. I'm going to only leave 5% of my children.
That's a lot of money.
It's $5 billion. Don't you ever fucking come and tell me you should give up 95% of your wealth when you have 100,000.
99.9%, it wouldn't matter.
That's my point. And when they say, well, we're really not giving them much, we're only going to give them a couple of $1 billion each. The point is, people's frame of mind is so different when they say, yeah, kids, we're just not really giving them much. We're going to only give them $1 billion each.
That's insane.
Insane, right? And that's my point. So when people talk about percentage, I'm going to give away 95%. That 5% is a shitload of money, right? And so my point is, it's not about that. We really need to have them rethink what success means to them, right? So it wasn't that they have money or not money. I redefined to say, hey, I want you to contribute back to the society so you can have some self-worth. Not a parasite. One could argue the only advantage we had was we were able to get them to rethink what they need to become as they grow older. And let me give you an example, another thing, and I'm going to come back to you on that. So how old are your kids, Darius?
My oldest will be 15 next week, and my youngest is 11.
But so 15-year-old, during summer, do you say, hey, I need you to learn the value of money, go earn some money, whether you're going to working at Nordstrom or whether you're working at gas station or you're going to do something, go earn something.
I have not done that yet, although I did that when I was their age. So a little bit, but not yet.
Okay. So answer is another wrong answer there. The thing is, it is literally saying that I am sadistic bastard. If I suffer through it, God knows I'm going to make you suffer through it, right? If I had to go work at the damn gas station, bag the grocery bag, God forbid I'm going to not let you suffer through the same thing. I'm going to be that sadistic father who's going to make you do that. So what we did was very different. We said, look, I started with absolutely nothing. If I make you start at the same place, so I started on the ground floor, I worked and I got to be here. I make you go back to where I started, and maybe you're smarter than me and you'll get to be here. What if I gave you a platform where I am and now you can go to the moon, right? And that means every summer we told them you do not ever have to worry about bagging the grocery bags or working at the gas station. But every summer, you have to find something that you want to learn, and you're going to spend 3 months learning that. So whether you want to learn about human brain, it is my job as a parent to use every connection I have for you to be able to go out and do that.
Nice.
Right? If you want to learn about AI, I'll get you into the best place to learn that. If you want to learn about anything, I don't care what the subject is. You want to learn about debating a skill? Let's go spend the next 3 months learning about debating skills. You want to learn about philosophy? Let's spend the next 3 months learning about philosophy. But what you can't do is sit at home, play video game.
Right.
Right.
Can I ask a question on that? Like, with that, what age did you around what age do you start some like the summer stuff?
Once they turn 10, every one of our children, the number one rule was they had to start a nonprofit. And the goal of the nonprofit would be for them to find what is it that they would want to make a change in someone's life, go raise money on their own, and go start something and start making a difference. And it was for them to, for me, it was not for them to make money, but to really start thinking there is life beyond themselves. And that was the best thing I could have done for my daughter. So when, at 16, she said, I'm going to have a birthday party and I'm going to donate all the money to the women in Afghanistan to build a school for them. Right? Now, she's not thinking, hey, I need a fancy dress, a fancy shoes, I need this. And she said, I have everything in life. These girls don't even have education. So I'm going to raise money and I'm going to go donate the money for that. And they start to think beyond themselves and start to find that how can they actually find joy in someone else's joy.
I love that. So, I have a mentor, Warren, his name's Warren Rustan. What he did something similar with his kids. I think when they were like 12 or 13, every one of them had to go do service trips internationally at refugee camps. Same thing, right? And then when they're 18 years old, they have to go for 2 years of service before they go to college.
Difference is I personally don't like the idea of simply a service because I want them to learn to take initiative that they own, and they have to now do something and create for themselves, right? Because once you do, you don't want to be that father who say, I was saving the turtles in Galapagos because my father is rich, so we just spend that time in Caribbean trying to look at the baby turtles, right? That is not right. So the thing really is to be able to have a leadership skill that says not only I'm going to find a purpose, I have a leadership skill to actually start something and pursue that to the end.
Do they run it when like year round when they're in school? How does that work?
So basically the idea is that all through the school, by the way, that's the best thing you can also do for college, just in case you're wondering. It's the best way to get into Ivy League college because what every Ivy League college is saying, does a person has a sense of beyond themselves. So everyone knows you're smart. But now, can you actually have leadership skill to start something? Do you have leadership skill that you care more than just for yourself? And you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for others. And that's the kind of thing they want to see in Ivy League college.
It's probably pretty rare, too, in some of those tougher schools that kids do that. So you said age 10 is when they start doing that? And so...
all through high school, they all had to continue pursuing their nonprofit.
And then what did they do at the end when they went to college? They kept running it. Did they? How did that work?
It didn't matter at that point. Idea was that you have done it now. Now you can either let go or have the next kid in your class who is part of the nonprofit, have them lead it, have them take over.
That's amazing. And so all three of your kids did that. Obviously, it worked out. You had two go to Stanford and one go to Penn. With the kid, obviously, like you have three kids that are it sounds like two of them are entrepreneurs. And sorry, your youngest, is he doing entrepreneurial stuff?
Entrepreneur. Yeah, he runs actually a company in fintech.
That's right. He's doing fintech.
Yeah.
So is this really around like when I don't know if there's anything else, but like what I'm hearing is I'm making sure they're learning how to think. I'm making sure they're learning how to take initiative, and I'm making sure that they're trying to learn how to solve problems and to do it beyond themselves.
That's right. And we talked about the tactics about making sure they learn in summer rather than doing the bagging the groceries. It's about intellectually curious, constantly challenging. Your job is to constantly learning them to challenge everything, right? And that's the thing, how they would learn more, because once they become intellectually curious, they say, Dad, why does it have to be this way? What if I can do something differently, right? And that curious thinking is what gets them to start thinking about solving the problem. Let's talk about when your kids were young, did you read them the stories?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a bad thing to do, but here is better than that. When our kids were young, instead of reading them the story, I would ask them to create a story.
Yeah, we did that too.
So we would say, hey, tell me a story about things that are completely disconnected. So I'll say, tell me a story about ocean and a palm tree and a monkey. Right? And they would say, And their job is to now connect the things that are disconnected in a storytelling way. And now they're being creative how to connect dots that are never been connected before. And they're Dad, now you tell me a story about this, this, and this. And now my job is to connect the dots. Guess what? Now they're learning that everything that looks so disconnected can actually be connected when we think in abstract terms. That means everything actually can be connected. And that's how you start to get them to start thinking differently than anyone else.
I love that, man. Let me ask you a question, because obviously you're a very creative person. You've done some really cool things. You have done a really good job with the kids to get them to, kind of follow in your footsteps in their own way, obviously. How's your wife? Like, what's her approach to this? How's she think about it? I mean, it takes two parents to do it, I would think.
Absolutely. So we've been married for now 37 years, right?
Nice.
So,
Congrats.
so same woman, we've been married for a long time. And again, it was really our joint effort. That idea was that she will nurture them in a different way. And our goal was really to let every kid know. And by the way, this is really, really very important distinction. Every one of our kids, we told them, our love for you is unconditional, but our approval is not. Just, right. And what that meant is we will always love you, but I'm not going to tell you I'm proud of you until you do things that make us proud of you.
Wow.
Right? And that means now as they grow older, they never question that we love them. But I'm not going to tell them I'm so proud of them unless they do things that actually makes other people's life better. Right? And now every time all they're waiting to hear is that's it. I'm so proud of you. Right?
Yeah, that's great.
But they never, and by the way, so one of the part is when you tell them that our love for you is unconditional, it has to be that way. So our rule that we don't break is when our kids call, it doesn't matter who I am talking to, what I am doing, I will take that call. Right? And that is a rule we never break. In fact, so much so, Darius, I remember when I was running InfoSpace, I was in front of at Goldman Sachs Investor Conference. There must have been 500 portfolio managers. My stock is trading at tens of billions. Right in the middle of my presentation, my phone rings and I say, "Excuse me, this is my son. I made him a promise that I always take his call." And I pick up the phone in the presentation while everyone is hearing. I said, "Uncle, is everything okay?" He said, "Yes, Dad." He said, "Uncle, is it okay? Can I call you back in 5 minutes?" In that time, it may have taken no more than 10, 15 seconds. My stock moved up by $5 billion.
So when you got off the phone, what did they do?
What happens is every portfolio manager says, that's the guy I can invest in who makes a promise and he doesn't give a flying shit about what we have to say. And he keeps his promise.
Wow.
That's the kind of ethics we can invest in. Right?
I love that,
the
man.
The point is, I didn't do that, but that's the kind of things you always have to do, is to make sure when you say something, you honor it. Right?
Yeah.
And most of us, by the way, will have very difficult time. So, for example, if I got a call now, I would say, "Darius, excuse me for a second. I'm going to put you in a mute. I need to take this call."
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I'm like, well, they might call in the middle of the show, but well, obviously you got to take it.
Yeah. Yes.
That's amazing, man. Gosh. So with the kids, like, have you actually asked them, like, obviously you have a lot of tactics and you've thought and strategies that have turned the results speak for themselves. Have you asked them like how they feel about like the things that you did?
Oh my God. I remember on a Father's Day, I was sitting with, going out for dinner with Uncle. He said, "Uncle, as you were growing up, as you know, I was so busy traveling and working hard. Did you ever wonder that, I wish that I did not do that or would have done something differently as you were growing up?" And I said, "Dad, that was the lesson we learned, that nothing in life actually can be successful without hard work. And that is what I do today. So the fact I know to build a company, I have to work 16-hour days. And that's what I do. That is what I realized that is what it takes. It was never a time where I felt you were not there for me. That even if you were there, you knew that even if you gave me 5 minutes, I knew that was the most important thing you have in your life. Money you had, I could give, but I knew if you gave me 10, 15 minutes of your time, that was the most valuable thing you had, and you still gave it to me.
Did you, so with the kids, when, and this is something I've struggled with, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially like in starting a new business. So right now, I think I talked to you about this before. I started a private equity business. It's been, like all new businesses are challenging, right? Because you're just kind of getting them figured out. What I find is I like, and you maybe are different, but I tend to get pretty obsessed with anything I'm doing.
You have to.
Yeah, you need that white heat, that critical inertia. And so if things are going bad in the business, I tend to obsess about it. If things are going good, I tend to want to make it better. And so a lot of the times when I'm with the family, it's kind of hard sometimes to turn it off and be present. Like, what did you do to navigate that? What's your approach on that?
So first of all, there is never this idea of finding a balance between a personal life and a work life is a complete wrong thing to do. The fact, if you have to balance between the personal life and the work life, you have already concluded that they cannot live together, because you only balance things that cannot be together. So what I realize is work and life is a continuum. There are going to be days, weeks, and months where I'm going to be more of one, and there are going to be a time it's going to be more of other. But it's never going to be a balance, right? So for example, if I'm going on vacation, my wife and kids know we all run business, right?
Right.
And what we do is we all say, all right, guys, we're going to spend the next couple of hours in the morning when we wake up. Let's spend a couple of hours taking care of what needs to be done. We're going to go get together. And in the evening, we're going to spend a couple of hours seeing whatever the day it needs to be. But in between, we're going to be all together and having some good time together, right? But I can never say to them, all right, next 7 days, we're taking our phones off, we're turning it off, and we're not checking any emails. That will never work. It is impossible for them to believe you can just shut off your life. But what we can all do is to say, look, guys, we all know things need to be done. We're going to take some time in the morning, sometime in the evening, but we're going to spend some time together also, right? And that really works out well for holiday. And we'll see. I mean, my son is constantly on the things. And, but we realizing that, hey, this is the time for vacation. We're going to take 5-6 hours together. And we're not going to be on the phone and on the laptop.
Yeah, interesting. Look, it's, as you say it, I'm like, look, I think that if people want to be around high performing, I think my wife struggles with mine a little bit, but she's gotten used to it, right? And at the end of the day, if you want to marry an entrepreneur that wants to be passionate about what they do and all in on it, I think that there has to be some alignment around the fact that this is what it's going to look like. I think I think there's probably a lesson to be learned where one of the spouses is against that. They don't want that, right?
Honestly, that never works. I mean, my wife realized I'm a very unhappy man. I am a miserable man to be around if I can't do the things that I really care. Think about it. If you force me, then I'm not going to be able to touch my phone. Maybe I'll get you for 24 hours, but I'm such a miserable man, you don't want to be around me anymore.
Let me ask you a question on this, because obviously you've and this is maybe a lesson for kids as they build their companies. Do all your kids, are they the singular founder? Do they have co-founders? Do they have partners?
So my uncle is my single founder, and my daughter has a co-founder, and my youngest one is running a business inside a business.
So there's obviously, when you have co-founders or when you have partners, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. And I don't know it can be pretty challenging sometimes. I've had business partners for almost every business I've had. What's your lessons for your kids on how to approach business partners? What's your lesson for them maybe when the power dynamic's not in their favor? Like your son that's running a business within a business, he's dependent upon the business that he's working within to, he's got to go get their approval, and he's got to make sure that they allow him to do what he wants to do.
I'm a firm believer, as long as there is a clarity, what the problem that happens when there is no clarity. So in my previous company, I had co-founders, In current company, I did not. In my previous my first company, I had no co-founder. But when I had co-founder, it was very clear. It is a financial co-partnership, but it's not a decision-making co-partnership. I control the company. I make the decision. I am the CEO. I'll give you a courtesy to hear your thoughts, but at the end of the day, I'll get to make the decision. And if that's not acceptable, this is not going to work.
And so with your kids, is it setting them up so that they have that they
Same
know they
thing.
need
When
to
my
have that?
daughter had a co-founder, we say very clear, this is not a co-founder. You own 65%, she owns 35%, and here are the rules. You are the CEO. That means very clear who makes the decision.
Interesting. So what do you think that your kids, would you ever let them go into a partnership where they did not get the final decision?
It's up to them, but if they do, as long as they are very clear that that's the role they have to play.
Okay.
Right? As long as they're clear that they're no longer the decision maker and they're comfortable with that, they don't get to bitch about it later. Oh, nobody's listening to me. Well, that's what you signed up for, that you may not get listened to.
Interesting. Okay. That's good. So this comes down to them having clarity, you teaching them that, hey, the role is less important. The clarity is more important.
Exactly.
And making sure you're aligned to whatever you agree to on that.
And but the same thing with your spouse, the clarity that, hey, honey, I love you, but this is who I am. This is the person you married. That's the person you're not going to change. This is like a dog's tail. It's never going to be straight. It's always going to curl. That curl is that obsession to do the things I do, right? Now, let's try to make this work.
Yeah.
But if that's not what you want, then it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah, interesting. I love that, man. I know I want to respect your time. We're almost at the end of the hour here. What's any final thoughts on that we didn't touch on that you wanted to teach our audience about?
So Darius, I think we covered a lot of points. Really, the message really is think differently. And thinking differently does not mean you're wrong. It is about challenging the status quo. A expert is someone who takes the knowledge for granted. A non-expert gets to challenge the foundation and they disrupt things, right? So most of the disruption happens from people coming from outside, challenging the foundation. So stay curious. If there's one thing you can do for yourself and for your children, it is to create the intellectual curiosity, because intellectual curiosity is a thirst that you'll constantly find the water for.
Love that, my friend. So for people that want to learn more, you have the new book, The Youth Formula, the new company, Viome. Where can they get the book? Where can they get learn more about Viome?
Book is available on Amazon, brother, and I go to Viome.com, V as in Victor, IOME, Viome.com, and you can always find me at NaveenJain.com, find me on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to answer any questions you may have.
Naveen, you are a scholar and a gentleman and a moonshotter and a world beater, and I appreciate you, my friend, so much, and I appreciate all the knowledge you've given us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, you guys, listen, go get more of Naveen, share this. Everyone needs to hear this. I titled this, by the way, it's not a final title, so it might change, but it's How to Raise Moonshot Kids. So I love this, man. Until next time, everybody, peace out. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.